December, 2025. The roar of the private jet barely muffled the commotion of the mystery machine. A private island, newly opened as a state-of-the-art robotic dinosaur theme park, awaited the Mystery Incorporated gang. But what started as a luxurious vacation quickly turned into a prehistoric nightmare. Metallic roars echoed through the lush jungle as the colossal automatons, meant to be the main attraction, turned against their creators. A prehistoric spirit possessing machines? Or was there something more sinister operating in the shadows, manipulating technology and terror? The team was about to unravel the biggest mystery of their lives, where past and future collided in a Jurassic-sized confrontation. The landing on Robotic Dinosaur Island was smooth, but the excitement of the Mystery Incorporated team was anything but quiet. Scooby and Shaggy were already drooling at the promise of an unlimited buffet of prehistoric snacks, while Fred, Daphne, and Velma observed the scenery with a mix of admiration and professional skepticism. Dr. Archaeologist Rex, the eccentric billionaire behind the venture, awaited them on the tarmac, his aviator glasses reflecting the tropical sun. "Welcome, my dears," Rex exclaimed, with infectious enthusiasm. "Prepare for an unprecedented immersion into the world of dinosaurs. Our technology is so advanced, you'll swear you're in the Jurassic era." The island was, indeed, a marvel. Giant palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, crystal-clear waterfalls cascaded down green peaks, and in the distance, the programmed roars of robotic dinosaurs could be heard. The resort itself was an oasis of luxury, with overwater bungalows and themed restaurants. On the first day, the gang allowed themselves to enjoy paradise. Fred was fascinated by the robot's engineering, Daphne by the island's natural beauty, and Velma was already mentally cataloging every robotic species on display. Scooby and Shaggy, on the other hand, were more concerned with finding the hidden stash of dinosaur-shaped biscuits. However, as the afternoon progressed, a strange tension began to hang in the air. Small incidents, initially dismissed as technical glitches, began to accumulate. A robotic triceratops, which should have been in a secure enclosure, appeared outside its area, moving erratically. The resort lights flickered intermittently, and the audio system let out strange hisses that seemed to mimic wild animal grunts. "This is a bit strange, don't you think?" Daphne commented during dinner, as a robotic pterodactyl flew dangerously low over the outdoor restaurant. "Probably just some initial adjustments," Dr. Rex assured, laughing nervously. "We have very complex robots, you know. But our engineers are always keeping an eye on them." Velma, however, already had her keen detective eye on. She noticed that some park employees seemed overly tense, and one in particular, an engineer named Dr. Silas, seemed to be avoiding eye contact. Later that night, as the team returned to their bungalows, a deafening alarm blared. From their windows, they saw a terrifying scene. A robotic T-Rex, with glowing red eyes, was tearing down one of the park's containment fences. Panic began to spread among the guests, who ran in all directions. Dr. Rex, visibly pale, approached the team. "It's like something is possessing the machines. A prehistoric spirit, I swear." Fred, always the pragmatic leader, shook his head. "Spirit or not, something is very wrong with these robots. Velma, I need you to start looking for any signs of sabotage. Daphne, help guide the panicked tourists to safety. Scooby and Shaggy, as scary as it sounds, we need you to look for important clues hidden in the dense vegetation." Scooby and Shaggy looked at each other, trembling. Robotic dinosaurs? But still dinosaurs. Shaggy squeaked. "We just need one Scooby snack for every clue you find." Fred tried to calm them down. Reluctantly, Scooby and Shaggy agreed, but with one eye on the out-of-control robotic dinosaurs and the other on their valuable biscuits. The Paradise Island was rapidly turning into a scene of chaos and terror. The night, which should have been for rest, became the beginning of a nightmare, with the metallic roars of the robots echoing through the darkness. The challenge of Robotic Dinosaur Island had begun, and the mystery machine was about to discover whether the threat was truly supernatural or something much more earthly. The next morning brought not the peace the team had hoped for, but an escalation in the robot's aggressive behavior. The island, once a paradise, now seemed like a twisted amusement park, with the rides turning against the visitors. Fred was immersed in robot programming manuals and circuit diagrams, trying to find an anomaly in the source code. He set up a small makeshift workstation in one of the bungalows, with the help of a park technician, Mr. Smith, who seemed as confused as he was terrified. "I can't find anything out of the ordinary here," Fred mumbled, frustrated, looking at the lines of code. "It's all standard programming. No apparent backdoors, no viruses. It's like the very command structure is being corrupted somehow." Meanwhile, Daphne tirelessly dedicated herself to protecting the panicked tourists. She and a small group of loyal employees, led by the park's head of security, Mr. Jones, tried to organize the evacuation. The task was monumental. The robots, especially the carnivores, seemed to have a radar for human gatherings, pursuing groups and creating more chaos. "We need clear escape routes. Where's the emergency meeting point?" Daphne asked Mr. Jones, who was panting, his face sweaty. "It's in the center of the island, Miss Blake, but several paths are blocked by the critters," he replied, pointing to a robotic stegosaurus blocking one of the main trails. Velma, in turn, was sifting through the wreckage left by the robot attacks, looking for signs of sabotage. She found strange weld marks on some of the damaged robots, and a small metal piece that didn't seem to belong to any of the park's dinosaur models. She noticed that the mark seemed to be from a specific tool, but couldn't immediately identify it. "This is curious," Velma murmured to herself, examining the piece with her magnifying glass. "This weld is very specific. Someone is altering these robots, it's not a random malfunction." Away from the central confusion, Scooby and Shaggy, despite their constant trembling, were on their own mission. Armed with a bag of Scooby snacks, they followed the robotic dinosaur tracks, sniffing and looking for anything out of place. They found a trail of robotic velociraptor footprints leading to a densely wooded area, off the tourist trails. On the ground, among the leaves, Scooby sniffed something. "What is it, Scooby?" Shaggy asked, trembling at the sight of a robotic pterodactyl flying over the trees. Scooby pointed with his paw to a small object half buried in the dirt. It was a toolbox, partially camouflaged by the vegetation. Inside, they found some unusual tools and a small radio communicator. The communicator was on, and they could hear a distorted voice talking about control frequencies and interference. "Fred's going to love this," Shaggy exclaimed, picking up the toolbox, ignoring the sound of a heavy robot approaching. But before they could get away, a deafening roar echoed in the forest. A colossal robotic T-Rex, its red eyes pulsing, emerged from the dense foliage. Scooby and Shaggy screamed in unison, dropping the toolbox and running as fast as their legs could carry them. They hid behind a bush, their hearts pounding. "He saw us, Shaggy. He saw us," Scooby whispered, clutching Shaggy's leg. The robotic T-Rex stopped, sniffing the air with its sensors. Its metallic roars seemed to shake the very trees. Suddenly, it bent down, its robotic mouth opening, and a red laser beam shot from its eyes, sweeping the ground where they were hiding. The toolbox, which they had dropped, was a few meters away. The dilemma was, retrieve the clue or run for their lives. The island was becoming a deadly trap, and time to unravel the mystery was quickly running out. Night fell again over Robotic Dinosaur Island, but silence did not come with it. The metallic roars and the panicked screams of tourists still echoed, making the island a stage of constant terror. Scooby and Shaggy, by a miracle of agility and a bit of luck, managed to escape the robotic T-Rex, retrieving the toolbox and the communicator. They ran back to the resort, panting, to find the rest of the team. "Look what we found!" Shaggy exclaimed, dropping the toolbox on the floor next to Fred. Fred picked up the communicator. Control frequencies. Interference. He frowned, fiddling with the buttons. This is interesting. Velma, can you take a look at this? Velma examined the communicator. It's a modified radio transmitter, Fred. And these tools are for reprogramming robot circuits. It looks like someone is using this to manipulate the dinosaurs remotely. But who? While Velma and Fred analyzed the new evidence, Daphne and Mr. Jones finally managed to guide a larger group of tourists to the emergency meeting point, an old research station in the center of the island, fortified and with few access points. Dr. Rex was there, visibly shaken. This is a nightmare. My island, my creation, destroyed by an evil spirit, he lamented, rubbing his temples. Daphne comforted him. Dr. Rex, it's not a spirit. We have evidence that someone is controlling these robots. But who would be so cruel? Rex asked, his eyes teary. Velma, who had been listening, had an idea. Remember the strange weld marks I found on the damaged robots? And that small metal piece? She picked up the piece and examined it again. This piece. I've seen something similar before. It's from a specific, very rare model of control chip. And the only place I've seen anything like it was in a presentation on advanced robotics technology, given by Dr. Silas. Everyone turned to Dr. Silas, the engineer who seemed to be avoiding eye contact. He was standing in a corner, trying to blend in with the crowd. He paled. Dr. Silas? Fred questioned. Can you explain this to us? Silas tried to defend himself. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a humble engineer. Humble, perhaps, Velma retorted, but also the only one with the access and knowledge to make these modifications. You were trying to sabotage the park, weren't you? Perhaps to force Dr. Rex to sell you the rights to the technology, or to get revenge for something. Before Silas could answer, a deafening roar shook the research station. A group of robotic velociraptors had found a breach in the security. They were smaller, faster, and moved with a calculated ferocity. Panic erupted again, with tourists scrambling for cover. Fred, with Mr. Jones's help, tried to block the main entrance. We need a plan. Scooby, Shaggy, can you help us distract them? Use the Scooby snacks, if you need to. Scooby and Shaggy, despite their fear, agreed. They threw the biscuits in one direction, making the velociraptors follow them for a moment, giving others time to reorganize. Meanwhile, Daphne and Velma tried to find another escape route or a vulnerable point in the robot's defense. Dr. Silas, seeing himself cornered and with the revelation imminent, did something unexpected. He activated the communicator that Scooby and Shaggy had found, and a high-pitched, screeching sound began to emit from it. The robots, which had been chasing the biscuits, stopped abruptly, their red eyes flashing even more intensely. He's intensifying the signal. Fred exclaimed. He's going to make them even more aggressive. The velociraptors turned towards them, their movements now faster and more coordinated. Fred realized that Silas had lost control. The sabotage was real, but something more complex was at play. The web of intrigue was denser than they imagined, and now the lives of the team and the tourists depended on unraveling the truth before the robots completely overwhelmed them. The final confrontation was approaching, and the answers were in the hands of whoever truly controlled the control. The research station trembled as Dr. Silas, with a twisted smile on his face, increased the transmitter's frequency. The robotic velociraptors, previously just aggressive, now seemed possessed by uncontrollable fury, charging against the station's armored doors. Fred quickly realized that Silas's plan was not just to sabotage, but possibly to destroy the park and everyone in it. He's using an overload program. Fred shouted. He's going to fry these robot circuits, but first, they're going to cause maximum destruction. Velma, acting quickly, snatched the communicator from Silas's hands. We need to deactivate this. Fred, can you identify the interference frequency? While Fred focused on the communicator, trying to decipher the frequency pattern, Daphne, with the help of Mr. Jones and Dr. Rex, tried to barricade the station doors. They piled up boxes, tables, and anything that could delay the robot's entry. Scooby and Shaggy, hidden under a table, watched the scene with wide eyes. I can't deactivate it, Fred admitted, frustrated. The signal is coded. It needs an access key. Access key. Velma thought aloud. Silas, where is the access key to deactivate the overload control? Silas, who was now handcuffed by Mr. Jones, laughed hysterically. Never. You'll never deactivate it. This is my moment of glory. Dr. Rex stole the patent for one of my projects, and now he'll pay. Dar. Rex approached, pale. Silas, what are you talking about? I would never steal anything from you. That artificial intelligence algorithm for robotic behavior control. I showed you the prototype years ago, and you discarded it. Now, you're using a modified version of it in this park. I created a backdoor, an overload program that would activate if my work wasn't recognized. The situation was chaotic. The robots were becoming increasingly violent, and the barricades began to give way. Fred, Daphne, and Velma knew they needed an immediate solution. Fred, what if we can't deactivate it, can we at least interfere with the signal? Velma suggested. If we can superimpose a stronger signal, even temporarily, we can buy time. Fred had an idea. We need something with greater transmission power than this communicator. Where is the main dinosaur control room? Dr. Rex, in shock, pointed to a map on the wall. It's underground, beneath the main mountain. It's a bunker. But it's surrounded by the strongest robots. Then, we'll have to race against time, Fred declared, determined. Daphne, Mr. Jones, hold the barricades for as long as you can. Velma, Scooby, Shaggy, come with me. We're going to the main control room. Scooby and Shaggy groaned, but the urgency of the situation overcame their fear. They crawled through the station's service tunnels, using Dr. Rex's rudimentary map. The path was infested with patrolling robots, and they needed to be stealthy. In a dark corridor, they came across a group of robotic Dilophosauruses. Zoinks! They saw us. Shaggy whispered, grabbing Scooby. Velma, however, noticed something strange. The Dilophosaurus's eyes were blinking slower than the other robots. Fred, look. They're having signal problems. Silas's signal is weak down here. Fred had an idea. Velma, can you overload the signal of anything that emits radio waves? Maybe the robots themselves. Velma pulled out a small electronic device she always carried with her. I can try to create a localized electromagnetic pulse overload, but it would be temporary and I need a power source. The main control room was located in a complex of underground tunnels. The entrance was blocked by a massive robotic brontosaurus, which, despite being a herbivore, was acting aggressively due to the overload. Fred realized that the only way to get past it was to deactivate the giant. Velma, can you use the power from this brontosaurus as a source for the overload? Fred asked, pointing to the robot's exposed power cables. Velma nodded, quickly connecting her device to the cables. An intense blue light began to flash. The electromagnetic overload temporarily fried the brontosaurus's circuits, which fell with a deafening thud, opening the way. They entered the main control room. It was a high-tech center, with computers and control panels. Velma quickly sat in front of the main console, while Fred tried to understand the interface. Fred, Silas's signal is coming from somewhere in here. I need to track it, Velma said, typing furiously. Suddenly, a roar shook the room. A robotic T-Rex, larger and more imposing than any other they had seen, burst through a side wall. Its eyes glowed with terrible intensity. It was the prototype, the masterpiece Silas had used to test his overload. And it was there to ensure that no one deactivated his plan. The fight for control of the island was about to reach its climax, and everyone's fate was in the hands of the mystery machine. The prototype T-Rex, imposing and menacing, filled the main control room. Its red eyes burned with the fury of the overload, and each metallic step made the floor tremble. Fred quickly pushed Velma away from the console, while Scooby and Shaggy hid behind a stack of servers. Dr. Silas, who was being dragged into the room by Mr. Jones, saw the scene and a triumphant smile spread across his face. "It's my prototype," he exclaimed. "It can't be stopped. It was designed to follow my orders, no matter what." Fred, always with a plan, noticed a gap in the wall where the T-Rex had entered. It was a tangle of exposed electrical cables. "Velma, if we can overload those cables, we might be able to create an electromagnetic pulse that could deactivate the T-Rex. But the risk is enormous, Fred. We could fry the entire island's control system, including the other robots." Velma warned. "We have no choice." Fred replied, dodging a lunge from the T-Rex, which was trying to bite him. While Fred tried to distract the robotic giant, Daphne and Mr. Jones, who had managed to enter the control room after the breach created by the T-Rex, began working to relocate the tourists to an even deeper service tunnel. Dr. Rex, visibly shocked, tried to help, but was in a state of disbelief. Scooby and Shaggy, in an unexpected act of bravery inspired by fear and gluttony, began throwing metal discs, which were prototype robot parts, to try and attract the T-Rex's attention. The discs hit the floor and echoed, confusing the robot's sensors for a few seconds. Velma, using her knowledge of robotic engineering, connected a power cable to a secondary console and began preparing the overload. "I need a constant power surge. Anything that can conduct electricity." Fred, noticing an opening, ran towards the exposed cables, dodging the T-Rex's jaws. Scooby, Shaggy, use the discs. Keep him distracted. With the metal discs being thrown all over the room, the robotic T-Rex turned and thrashed, trying to locate the source of the noise. Fred seized the moment to connect the cable Velma had prepared to the exposed cables in the wall. A series of sparks and electrical arcs began to fly. "It's working!" Velma shouted, adjusting the overload parameters. "But he's resisting. The prototype T-Rex has extra safety systems." Silas, still handcuffed, laughed again. "My prototype is invincible. It cannot be deactivated by a simple pulse." Suddenly, Scooby, in a moment of pure genius inspired by fear and gluttony, noticed that one of the metal discs he threw had gotten stuck in a small opening on the side of the T-Rex, near a control panel. He pointed to Shaggy. "Shaggy. The disc. Over there." Shaggy, with a desperate throw, tossed another disc that, by sheer luck, hit the control panel, dislodging it. A tangle of colored wires was exposed. Velma saw the opportunity. "Fred. The panel. It's the master control box. If we can redirect the overload there." Fred, with Daphne's help, managed to guide the T-Rex near the wall. While the robot was distracted by the new threat, Fred, with a swift movement, connected the overload cable directly to the exposed wires on the T-Rex's control panel. A burst of blue light and a short-circuit sound echoed through the room. The prototype T-Rex trembled violently, its red eyes flickered and went out. The metal giant fell to the floor with a deafening crash, inert. The silence that followed was almost palpable. The overload on the prototype T-Rex had an unexpected effect. Silas's interference signal was completely destroyed, and all other robots on the island stopped. Control of the island was back. Dr. Rex ran to Silas, his eyes filled with rage. "Silas, how could you do this? You tried to destroy everything I built." Silas, defeated, finally confessed. "You stole from me. The behavior algorithm, Dr. Rex. You said it wasn't good enough for your park, but I saw a modified version a year later in your final project. I felt betrayed. I just wanted recognition. I developed an overload protocol that would activate if my intellectual property wasn't credited, but it wasn't meant to be like this. I lost control. Mystery Incorporated had once again solved the mystery, but the cost was high. The island was in ruins, the robots destroyed, and the park's reputation stained. The truth, in the end, was not a prehistoric spirit, but the greed and envy that led to the sabotage. But the journey was not over yet, and the consequences of this challenge would test the resilience of the team and the island itself. With the deactivation of the prototype T-Rex and the subsequent shutdown of all robots on the island, calm, though still fragile, finally returned. The tourists, initially terrified, began to emerge from their hiding places, relieved to see the metallic dinosaurs motionless. Dr. Silas was promptly handed over to the authorities, confessing his entire sabotage plan and his motivation for revenge for not having his work recognized. The island, however, was a scene of destruction. The resort was damaged, the trails destroyed, and most of the robots, which were the main attraction, were inactive. Dr. Rex was heartbroken. He thanked Mystery Incorporated profusely for saving the day, but the sadness in his eyes was evident. His dream of a robotic dinosaur park was in ruins. I don't know how I'm going to rebuild this, he said, as the team observed the remains of a robotic triceratops. It's too much damage. And people's trust. Fred, with his characteristic optimism, put his hand on Dr. Rex's shoulder. Dr. Rex, you have something incredible here. The technology is advanced. What we need is a new approach. Daphne, always with an eye for the human side of things, added, perhaps the problem wasn't the technology itself, but how it was used. Focusing solely on grandiosity and the pursuit of profit without adequate security and without recognizing the creators is a risk. Velma, who was already analyzing the data from the deactivated robots, had an idea. Dr. Rex, Silas's behavior algorithm, although used for destructive purposes, had incredible potential. What if we could reprogram the robots not to be aggressive, but to be interactive, educational? The park could become a learning center about prehistory, with dinosaurs that visitors could learn to tame or interact with safely and educationally. We could even incorporate a kind of interactive museum, where people could learn about the creation process and the challenges of robotics, including Dr. Silas's story, but in a way that shows overcoming and learning. Velma's idea sparked a light in Dr. Rex's eyes. He considered the proposal carefully. Transforming an adventure park into an educational center. It's a turnaround, but maybe it's exactly what we need. Scooby and Shaggy, who were munching on the last Scooby snacks, suggested. What if we have dinosaur-themed biscuits in all the stores? And excursions to find biscuit fossils? Everyone laughed. Despite the chaos, Mystery Incorporated always found a silver lining, and often, it involved food. In the following months, Mystery Incorporated collaborated with Dr. Rex. Fred helped redesign the security systems, making them sabotage-proof and with multiple levels of control. Daphne helped train new guides and develop robot interaction programs, ensuring visitor safety and education. Velma oversaw the reprogramming of the dinosaurs, transforming them from predators into gentle mechanical teachers, capable of imitating realistic behaviors in a non-threatening way. Dr. Silas, though imprisoned, was properly credited for his original contribution to the algorithm, an attitude that Dr. Rex made sure to include in the new plan. Robotic Dinosaur Island reopened a year later, but with a new name, Innovation Prehistoric Island. It was no longer an adventure park with scares, but a center for learning and interaction. Visitors could program small robot dinosaurs, participate in simulated excavations with research robots, and even feed a robotic T-Rex with synthetic vegetables. The story of sabotage and overcoming became part of the park's legacy, teaching visitors about the dangers of envy and the importance of recognition. Mystery Inc. Watching the island flourish again, felt the satisfaction of another mystery solved. It wasn't just about catching the villain, but about restoring order and, sometimes, even helping to rebuild dreams. Innovation Prehistoric Island was proof that, even from the greatest challenges, creativity and resilience can give rise to something even better. The sun set over the now peaceful Innovation Prehistoric Island. The roars of the robotic dinosaurs, once menacing, were now educational melodies, guiding visitors through forgotten eras. Mystery Incorporated, having unraveled the mystery of the possession and exposed Silas's sabotage, left behind not just a solved case, but a legacy of renewal. The prehistoric terror had given way to innovation, proving that the true threat was not a spirit, but human greed, and that collaboration and ethics were the true foundations for a harmonious future.